Enjoy nature. Enjoy life. I love Hong Kong. I love green.
Thanks for staying with us. This is Newsline. I'm talking to Dr. Robert Chung of the Hong Kong University on public opinion in Hong Kong. He's a well-known pollster in Hong Kong. Now, Dr. Chung, we were talking about before the break about the how the Manila hostage drama had affected public opinion in Hong Kong. Someone asked me this, and I thought I would pose this question to you. All the people who died, the 8 people who died, were Hong Kong Chinese. Supposing in the bus, the people who died were not Hong Kong Chinese, Hong Kong residents, but foreigners, supposing they were expatriates or Pakistanis or Nepalese, but Hong Kong, nevertheless, Hong Kong residents, Hong Kong citizens, would that have changed public opinion different, in a different way? Affected in a different way?
Well, of course, this is a hypothetical question, and it didn't happen. I would think if there was, say, Hong Kong expatriate amongst the victims, but still there are other local Chinese amongst the victim group, then I don't think the reaction would change too much. But if the situation is, say, there's all victims were non-locals, how will Hong Kong people react? I really just do not know. I would hope that Hong Kong people are mature enough under one country, two systems, that we, of course, is part of China, but we are a very unique and special city, a very international city. So Hong Konger is no longer restricted to a very traditional concept of ethnic Hong Kong Chinese. I think a lot of educated Hong Kong people have grown out of that stage. But if you ask me what would happen, say, to the general mass,
would the outrage be as much?
Well, I think there would be some difference, but I just couldn't tell, and I just don't want that to happen.
It's just somebody asked me that question. I mean, I couldn't give an answer, so I thought I'd ask you since you're the expert on this. Okay, now we'll move on. You know, one of the other things that you do, obviously, is this you track the popularity of Donald Tsang, and you track the popularity of the LegCo members. Donald Tsang has not been having a good time of it, but your latest polls show that he is slowly creeping up in popularity, creeping back up little by little. This is going to help him, right? This Manila crisis.
Well,
people will forget about all the wrong things that his administration has done.
Well, there are opportunities again for the administration to do wrong things, of course, and this incident, they seem to be handling it pretty well. So this, of course, is an opportunity for say, Donald Tsang's popularity to continue to move up. I have to say that we have been mapping all these chief executives and of course Chris Patten as the governor of Hong Kong's popularity for such a long time that we are really trying to look at some structures. Are there really systematic structural changes across all these chief executives? It seems that some structures have happened. Now, we don't have a democratic society, so we don't elect our governor chief executive. So according to the basic law, a chief executive should be there for 10 years, two consecutive terms with 10 years. It seems that this is a little bit too long a time for a Hong Kong leader to stay for 10 years. Because for Donald Tsang, he came to this post, of course, after Sik Tung stepped down, and he had, I mean, Donald Tsang has had a very good popularity at the beginning, and that lasts for about 3 years. So we don't say honeymoon because it's in terms of months, but we're really talking about a good time of about 2 to 3 years, very good for a new phase.
And then he went down.
And then he went down. And this also applies to Sik Tung as well.
But not Chris Patten, though, huh?
Not Chris Patten, but Chris Patten, when he came, he also earns very good popularity, but people know because he came in 1992, 1997, he has to go. Right, so it's only 5 years for him. So seems all right. That's 7 years for him. Seems all right for him. Now we look at Sik Tung, we look at Donald Tsang, and I also look at Chen Shui-bian in Taiwan, elected for 8 years, presumably for a full term of 8 years. Then about at 5, 6, 7 years, people tend to get impatient. something has happened, government is not handling things well, and we
They
like to
find
change.
more fault with their leaders, right?
Well, they're bound to find faults with leaders, even for elected leaders.
Well, look at Obama. He's been there a couple of years less, and his popularity has just gone down.
This happens all the time, even for elected governments.
Right.
But if you have say a system, a rotary system of 4 years, then you could wait 3 years. If you're not happy, then the 4th year I change you. If I could tolerate you for 1 more time, then 8 years is the end of everything. So Obama came because he sort of revolt against Bush and said he wanted to change, and this sells. People like that. Now, I think even for Hong Kong people, it's not so much with Dick Chung or Donald Trump as a person, but sometimes society wants change because there are faults. There are bound to be faults for the government at some point in time.
Right.
And if you could wait for another year, you could wait for it. But if I'm going to tell you, let's wait for another 4 year or 5 year, then you lose patience.
Right.
You cannot re-elect your government. So you started the protest, you express yourself in opinion polls.
And then they become. But the thing is, if you look at Donald Trum's popularity, is compared to Western leaders who are elected, it's really not all that bad, right?
Depends on which indicator you use. Of course, what I would say this is normal. If we look at the rating, we use the thermometer scale 0 to 100. So the rating is about 50. So it's mediocre. It's not good. But still, if you look at approval rates, then perhaps a 30, 40 approval rate is normal for a leader, Western leader,
who's been there for
on the verge of stepping down.
Exactly, and Donald Trump is on the verge of stepping down. He's a couple more years.
Use that. But of course, I have to add that we are not having a democratic system here in Hong Kong. So even when we poll people for approval rates, they don't have that concept of changing the leader. So they have this kind of a toleration, whether I should tolerate him or her to be leader for another period of time. And seems that with that measurement, well, he is not too bad, but there are enough aggression amongst the public, and of course among specific group of public, that he has to be very careful. He has a very short time to stay on, but still, I think he would hope to really push up his popularity
He's got a couple more years. So I've got a couple more, few minutes left only, so I want to move on here. Now, originally I asked you to come to talk about how public confidence in the judiciary has gone down based on one of your polls. A few days back, the Chief Justice of Hong Kong, the retiring Chief Justice, Justice Lee, Andrew Lee, he's saying that there is no social bias in the way the judiciary sentences, hands down verdicts, and so on. But the people feel that there was, in the case of Amina Bukhari, who's got two very well-known, influential uncles. One's a Court of Final Appeal judge, the other is an executive councillor. How serious is this shift in public opinion? Because if the public doesn't believe in the judiciary, that's a very serious issue.
Well, I think all our indicators on this judiciary confidence, well, they have gone down a bit because probably of this case, but I would think this is not a very serious drop, and it could recover. Well,
because the rule of law is one of our foundations in Hong Kong.
It's one of our foundations, and we've been measuring people's perception of all these foundation or pillars of Hong Kong values for such a long time. It seems that people do enjoy our freedom, so freedom indicator is always high. For the rule of law, well, it's a bit below freedom, but still people are sort of satisfied. The biggest challenge is not with these rulings, it's with the reinterpretation or interpretation of the basic law.
But do people really believe the uncles or somebody influenced the verdict of the magistrate?
Well, I think the cases themselves are pretty complicated because, well, we're now not really looking at the pure judgment of handled down by the judge, but also the prosecution process. All these have influenced people's perception of the cases. But if we are asking people about the confidence in the rule of law, of course it goes ups and downs. It has always been on the high side, and I would think, of course, the government has to handle it very carefully, the court has to handle it carefully, but the way we see the courts is that they should be independent of public opinion.
Sure,
of course, they're being monitored, but the way that independent judiciary works is that they don't really have to bother public
exactly.
opinion.
If they follow public opinion, they cannot really be independent. They're hostage to public opinion.
Exactly. So that has to be educated. Hong Kong people have to
understand
educate.
that.
Right, right.
Well, you know, I've just got a couple of minutes. Actually, I've got 1 minute left. I wanted to ask you this. We talked about structural changes in public opinion in Hong Kong. Now, what about you? You mentioned, you know, Hong Kong is unique. There's us and there's Macau, one country, two systems. You can look at the Greater China region in Hong Kong, Guangdong, Macau, and so on. How does that work? I mean, are you able to track opinion on mainland China, where there's far less democracy and freedom than we have here?
Well, even across all these Chinese societies, Taiwan, mainland China, Macau, Hong Kong, there's very special, unique features for different societies. Even for cities like Shanghai, Guangdong, Guangzhou, they are very different. But as I can see it, things are happening positively in China, because any kind of responsive government, whether democratic or not, they need to get the pulse of the people. So they need professionals to do the job. I think a lot of professionals across the border in China already working on these public opinion research.
They get accurate opinion, though?
It has to be accurate, otherwise it's useless. But I think accurate opinion in the private domain or in the government domain versus public opinion in the media or in the public domain, there is still a big separation in these two types of research in China. In Hong Kong, in open society, of course, they merge together.
You can do it exactly. Right. Okay, just very quickly, last question. Many years ago, during the Tung administration, you came under a lot of pressure. The government wanted to pressure you. Very quickly, do you still feel this kind of pressure in your findings and the way you do your opinion?
Everybody has learned. I think the government has learned. We have also learned, because we publish everything online, so there's not much need for insiders.
So there's no pressure on the part of the government on
Well, I say we're nice, we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
See you next week. Good evening.